Assalamu alaikum all of you. Hope you're all doing well and safe at your homes. Today I'll give you a lecture about the major and minor characters of the novel. I'll introduce the characters to you and will give a complete analysis of the characters as well as the development of each character with reference to the text. So, first of all, I want to draw your attention towards a term that is Bildungsroman. This novel, Great Expectations, is written in the form of a Bildungsroman. Uh, so, I am giving you the complete idea about this term. Bildungsroman is a term that is all about growing up, and Great Expectations follows an orphan named Pip from his childhood to adulthood. So, this story is not just telling about watching an age story, but it's all about watching a change and hopefully for the better. In Pip's case, the growth comes as he re-evaluates his expectations. There is a character map which shows that how other characters, or you may say all the characters, are related to the main character Pip, who is the central character and protagonist. So now comes towards the very first character, Philip Pirip. As a Bildungsroman, Great Expectations presents the growth and development of a single character, which is the character of Pip. And as the focus of the Bildungsroman, Pip is by far the most important character in this novel. He is both the protagonist, whose actions make up the main plot of the novel, as well as the narrator, whose thoughts and attitudes shapes the reader's perception of the story, right? As a result, developing an understanding of Pip's character is perhaps the most important step in understanding this novel. Now, because Pip is narrating his story many years after the events of the novel take place, there are really two Pips in this novel. The first Pip, the narrator, and the Pip, the character, right? And the voice telling the story and the person acting it out. Hope you're understanding it. Now, Dickens takes great care to distinguish of the two Pips, imbuing the voice of Pip and the narrator with perspective and maturity while also imparting how Pip the character feels about what is happening to him as it actually happens. This skillfully executed distinction is perhaps best observed early in the book. So when the Pip character is a child, here Pip the narrator gently pokes fun at his younger self, but also enables us to see and feel all the stormy story through his own eyes. So, as a character, Pip's two most important traits are his immature romantic idealism and his innately good conscience. So, on the one hand, Pip has a deep desire to improve himself and attain any possible advancement, whether educational, moral, or social. His longing to marry Estella and join the upper classes stems from the same idealistic desire as his longing to learn to read and his fear of being punished for bad behavior. Once he understands ideas like poverty, um, or ignorance and immorality, Pip doesn't want to be poor, ignorant, or immoral. Right? Now, Pip, the narrator, judges his own past actions extremely harshly and rarely giving himself credit for the good deeds, but angrily castigating himself for bad ones. As a character, however, Pip's idealism often leads him to perceive the world rather narrowly, and his tendency to oversimplify situations based on superficial values leads him to behave badly towards the people who care more about him. And so when Pip becomes a gentleman, for example, he immediately begins to act as he thinks a gentleman is supposed to act, which leads him to treat Joe and Biddy snobbishly and coldly. So, on one hand, Pip is at heart a very generous and sympathetic young man, a fact that can be witnessed in his numerous acts of kindness throughout the book. For example, in helping Magwitch or secretly buying Herbert's way into business, and his essential love for all those who love him. So Pip's main line of development in the novel may be seen as the process of learning to place his innate sense of kindness and conscience about his immature idealism. Not long after meeting Miss Havisham and Estella, Pip's desire for advancement largely overshadows his basic goodness. So, after receiving his mysterious fortune, his idealistic wishes seem to have been justified, and he gives himself over to gentlemanly life of idleness. But the discovery that the wretched Magwitch, not the wealthy Miss Havisham, is his secret benefactor shatters Pip's oversimplified sense of his, uh, you may say, the world's hierarchy. The fact that he comes to admire Magwitch while losing Estella to the brutish nobleman, Drummle ultimately forces him to realize that one's social position is not the most important quality one possesses, and that his behavior as a gentleman has caused him to hurt the people who care most about him. Once he has learned these lessons, Pip matures into the man who narrates the novel completely and brilliance Roman. So I am giving you a quote from the text, that is, I thought how Joe and my sister were then sitting in a kitchen, and how Miss Havisham and Estella never sat in a kitchen, but were far above the level of such common doings. This quote is about when, after Pip's first visit to Miss Havisham's house, Pip sees his family's way of life in a very new and more appropriately in a negative sense, right? He has never thought of sitting in the kitchen as being anything other than normal. Now, sitting in the kitchen seems low class. He has just realized that in upper class households, only the servants go into the kitchen. Their masters are waited on. Now, Pip's family, having no servants, lives in a completely different way, which Pip now sees as common, or you may say bad. This was all about the character of the Pip. Now come towards the next character. The next character is of Joe Gargery, which functions as a symbol of the life that Pip tries to reject, but ultimately comes to value. Joe is well described as a mild, good natured, sweet tempered, and easygoing, and provides a loving and nurturing presence during Pip's childhood. When Joe reveals to Pip how he reveals to Pip that his own difficult childhood as I have mentioned in the quote in the next slide from the text, the lack of education and commitment to do everything he can do to make life better for Pip and Mrs. Joe. Pip initially feels conscious that I was looking up to Joe in my heart. However, once Pip becomes obsessed with measuring up to Stella's lofty standards, he becomes increasingly ashamed of Joe. He is embarrassed by Joe's behavior when the old man accompanies him to Satter's house, and then again when Joe comes to visit him in London. As Pip admits that I wanted to make Joe less ignorant and common, that he might be worthier of my society. While Joe never gets angry or frustrated with Pip's behavior, he is just shrewd enough to observe the way he is being treated and responds with quiet dignity. Joe in his London visit by explaining, "You and me is not two figures to be known together in London. I am wrong out of the forge, the kitchen, or of mashes." Unlike Pip, Joe has a strong sense of identity and no desire to pretend to be anything he is not, right? And he's not wishful to intrude, "I have departed." Later, after nursing Pip during his illness, Joe leaves a simple note explaining that, "Not wishful to intrude, I have departed." Joe's choice to pay off Pip's debt shows that he is faithful and loving, further inspiring Pip's admiration. And by the end of the novel, Joe's consistency and dignity have been revealed as a model of what it means to be a good man. Unlike Pip, Joe also ends the novel in a loving marriage with children, showing that his gentle and nurturing ways have been rewarded. So there is a quote about Mr. Gargery that, "I am dead afeard of going wrong in the way of not doing what's right by a woman, and I'd far further of the two go wrong the t'other way, and be a little ill convenienced myself. I wish it was only me that got put out. Pip, I wish I could take it on myself, but this is the up and down and straight on it. Pip, and I hope you will overlook shortcomings." Here, Joe describes his own parents' relationship, that his father frequently beat his mother, who would take Joe and run away. His father always got Joe and his mother back. At the time, a wife was considered the husband's property, the patriarchal system. So, while some boys might have followed in their father's footsteps, but Joe explains that he deliberately took the opposite course. There is another character of Mrs. Joe Gargery. She is the older sister of Pip, who raises Pip with her husband, Joe, and becomes this overbearing and strict mother figure. So she is abusive and self important. Mrs. Joe appears to be total evil. However, some of her behavior is understandable. When she was 20, before the story begins, she was left alone with a helpless infant brother, Pip, who was not even weaned. By the time the reader is introduced to her, she has already buried two parents and five brothers and has no husband, and hence no means to support herself. Then Joe solves that by marrying her. However, because of all the loss in her life early on, she fears abandonment and wants security to her focus. So that's why her focus is survival. She seeks it through power and wealth and unconsciously communicates these values to Pip. Joe alludes to her fear of abandonment when he notes that she doesn't want Joe to better himself. That would take away her power in handling the business and of things in their relationship, and may even give to Joe the opportunity to leave her. So Mrs. Joe's character, she has characteristics which I think they are: she's mean, cruel, unkind, evil, insensitive, and witch like. So, one phrase that describes Mrs. Joe's personality is brought up by hand. This is in the page 6 in the book. From this description, I know that Mrs. Joe is the mean witch because this phrase not only just refers to the fact that she beats Pip but her husband as well. That is very strange and bad thing for a wife to do. Whether or not she was as physically cruel to Joe as to Pip, she is still an unjust person because of this. She's got tickler with her. This is another phrase I found in the page 7 of the book. Is an extremely interesting phrase. Tickler, that is the device that Mrs. Joe uses to beat Pip. So rather than a fun toy that will tickle Pip, it's a piece of a cane that will really hurt him. This shows that Mrs. Joe is ruthless. So another phrase that describes Mrs. Joe's personality is she rampaged out. This is in the page 7. From this quote, I know that Mrs. Joe is cruel in that she makes Pip's life very miserable. She couldn't handle the fact that Pip might be out on a walk to escape his unenjoyable life at home. So she set out on a rampage to find out. One phrase that surprised me was, "Oh, Uncle Pumblechook, this is kind." This is in the page 24. This was a surprise to me, because it was the first positive thing that I remember hearing from Mrs. Joe. That, however, this reveals to me that she's a bit conniving because she covers up her horrible personality in front of company, in front of other people, and she pretends to be a lovely, pleasant person, which she is most definitely not. She is wearing a mask outside of her home. So there is the next character of Miss Havisham. She is one of the most strange and grotesque characters in the story, the wicked witch of the fairy tale. She is very wealthy but crazy old woman who lives in Satis house near Pip's village, and she has an she has a daughter, Estella. She seeks to protect the girl from the hurts she herself has suffered, and that intention, however, degrades into her training Estella to love no one and exact revenge from all men, because In adopting Stella, she seeks to protect the girl from the hurts she herself has suffered. So Miss Havisham was proud, beautiful, passionate, and headstrong, things Compson used against her. Deeply hurt, she is reeling from the loss of control she felt by the betrayal and determined to regain both control and self image. Miss Havisham chooses her lifestyle. She wields her money as her weapon of power and trains her daughter to succeed where she has failed. But it backfires. Stella ends up not only unable to love men but unable to love Miss Havisham also. Miss Havisham's creation is her downfall, and Pip is her mirror. When she sees the depth of Pip's feelings for Estella, Miss Havisham sees herself with compassion and remembers what she once was. So her redemption is in seeing her sins and showing her remorse. She does the only thing she can do, takes responsibility for her actions. She asks Pip's forgiveness, helps Herbert pocket, and she leaves a fortune to Herbert's father. So, critically, she is the mad, vengeful Miss Havisham, a wealthy who lives in a rotting mansion, as you can see in the picture that her mansion is in a bad condition and she is too, and wears an old wedding dress every day of her life, is not exactly a believable character, really. But she is certainly one of the most memorable creations in this book. So, Miss Havisham's life is defined by a single tragic event, her jittling by Compson on what was to have been their wedding day. From that moment forth, Miss Havisham is determined never to move beyond her heartbreak. She stops all the clocks in Satis house at exactly 9:20, the moment when she first learned that Compson was gone, and she wears only one shoe because when she learned of his betrayal, she had not yet put on the other shoe. That's so sad. With a kind of manic, obsessive cruelty, Miss Havisham adopts Estella and raises her as a weapon to achieve her own revenge on men. Getting my point? Miss Havisham is an example of single minded vengeance pursued destructively. Both Miss Havisham and the people in her life suffer greatly because of her quest for revenge. Right? Miss Havisham is completely unable to see that her actions are hurtful to Pip and Estella. She is redeemed at the end of the novel when she realizes that she has caused Pip's heart to be broken in the same manner as her own. Rather than achieving any kind of personal revenge, she has only caused more pain. Miss Havisham immediately begs Pip for forgiveness and reinforcing the novel's theme that bad behavior can be redeemed by condition and sympathy. Here in the next slide, there are some quotations about Miss Havisham. That the first one is, "I am tired," said Miss Havisham. "I want diversion, and I have done with men and women play." From this quote, we can conclude that Miss Havisham possessed hermit like qualities. However, she hadn't been of such specific character her entire life. One horrible, tragic incident was the cause of her condition. just one incident. Her desertion at the altar was such the incident. After being jilted on her own wedding day, her heart was shattered into a million of pieces, and she was thus rendered completely emotionally and physically weak, and you may say psychologically as well. Being in a such tragic state unto which emotions averts the human sense, she completely isolated herself from the external world. You may say she becomes introvert rather than seeking guidance through her relations. In the next quote, with this boy, why is a common laboring boy? I thought I overheard Miss Havisham answer, only it seemed so unluckily. Well, you can break his heart. This citation is from Great Expectations that exemplifies Miss Havisham's revengeful disposition. This is on page 62 of the book, where she had craved revenge upon each and every member of the male gender ever since her abandonment on her wedding day. Since she was not capable of fulfilling the duties of vengeance herself due to her emotional trauma, she had her adopted daughter Estella performs these duties. This quote discloses Miss Havisham's motive for summoning Pip to her sanctum as well. She only invited Pip to her neglected mansion for the purpose of using Pip as practice for Estella. So mean. Pip served as Estella's test dummy on her quest of heartbreak. The next character is of Estella. She is a beautiful young girl around Pip's age who had been adopted and raised by the wealthy but strange Miss Havisham. Just not strange, too much stranged. She is very Stella is an orphan and a victim. Like Pip, both had surrogate mothers who thought they were doing the right things. Both are used by their surrogate parents, as Estella by Miss Havisham and Pip by Magwitch, to extract revenge from society. Both share a somewhat passive approach to life that she alludes to when she says that they are both unable to follow their own free path but must do the bidding of another. She is an honest character, not evil, and is what she was trained to be. She cannot love Pip or Miss Havisham because she was not taught love, and she says so quite honestly. There is no manipulation, only frankness. She also shows a sort of loyalty to Pip when she tells him she will toy with all men. There is an acknowledgement that she knows Pip loves her. She cannot love him, and therefore she will not be with a man who will realize she has nothing to give him. Yet, underneath this rigid, unemotional surface is the passion and emotional fury of her parents, Molly and Magwitch. The one time she responds to Pip and lets him kiss her is when he displays rare aggression and forcefulness in beating the pale young gentleman. There is deep within her something that responds to emotional fury, that is the part that is changed and softened by the abuse Drummle hands her in their marriage. So often cited as Dickens' first convicting female character, Estella is a supremely ironic creation, one who darkly undermines the notion of romantic love and serves as a bitter criticism against the class system or social class in which she is mired. Raised from the age of 3 by Miss Havisham to torment men and break their hearts badly, Estella wins Pip's deepest love by just practicing deliberate cruelty. Unlike the warm, winsome, kind heroine of a traditional love story, Estella is cold, cynical, and manipulative. Though she represents Pip's first longed for ideal of life among the upper classes, Estella is actually even lower born than Pip. As Pip learns near the end of the novel that she is the daughter of Magwitch, the court's convict, and thus springs from the very lowest level of society. Ironically, life among the upper classes doesn't represent salvation for Estella. Instead, she is victimized twice by her adopted class. Rather than being raised by Magwitch, a man of great inner nobility, she is raised by Miss Havisham, who destroys her ability to express emotion and interact normally with the world. And rather than marrying the kind hearted commoner Pip, Estella marries the cruel nobleman Brummel, who treats her harshly and makes her life hell and miserable for many years. So, in this way, Dickens uses Stella's life to reinforce the idea that one's happiness and well being are not deeply connected to one's social position or social class. Had Stella been poor, she might have been substantially better off. Despite her cold behavior and the damaging influences in her life, Dickens nevertheless ensures that Stella is still a sympathetic character by giving the reader a sense of her inner struggle to discover and act on her own feelings rather than on the imposed motives of her upbringing. Dickens gives the reader a glimpse of Stella's inner life, which helps to explain that what Pip might love about her. Stella doesn't seem able to stop herself from hurting Pip, but she also seems not to want to hurt him. She repeatedly warns him that she has no heart. She seems to urge him as strongly as she can to find happiness by leaving her behind. Finally, Stella's long painful marriage to Drummle causes her to develop along the same lines as Pip. That is, she learns through experience to rely on and trust her inner feelings. So, in the final scene of the novel, she has become her own woman for the first time in the book. As she ways to Pip, as she says to Pip, suffering has been stronger than all other teaching. And she says, I have been bent and broken, but I hope into a better shape. In the next slide, there are some quotes about Estella. First one is, it seems, said Estella very calmly, that there are sentiments, fancies, I don't know how to call them, which I am not able to comprehend. When you say you love me, I know what you mean as a form of words. but nothing more. You address nothing in my breast. You touch nothing there. I don't care for what you say at all. I have tried to warn you of this, have I not? This shows that Stella doesn't care for anyone's feelings other than her own. She doesn't feel the same way Pip does. She doesn't even feel bad about not loving him back. She only blames Pip for not listening to her warning. The very next quote, though she called me boy so often, and with a carelessness that was far from complimentary, she was of about my own age. She seemed much older than I, of course, being a girl, and beautiful and self possessed, and she was as scornful of me as if she had been 1 and 20 and a queen. This is when Stella is first introduced in the novel. Even some of her first words show her dislike for Pip, even though he has not said a meaningful thing to her as of yet. It shows how cruel she can be right from the beginning. In the next slide, there is another quote that you will get me put off your thoughts in a week. Out of my thoughts, you are part of my existence, part of myself. You have been every line I have ever read. Since I first came here, the rough common boy whose poor heart you wounded even then. You have been in every prospect I have ever seen since on the river, on the sails of the ships, on the marsh, on the clouds, on the light, in the darkness, in the wind, in the woods, on the sea, in the streets. You have been the embodiment of every graceful fancy that my mind has ever become acquainted with. This quote shows that even though all she has ever done to Pip is push him away, he still loves her. At this point, she is exactly what Miss Havisham wanted, that a beautiful woman that would show men the same suffering she has had to deal with ever saw her wedding day. She makes such a big impact on Pip and others without putting effort into keeping them close to her, and that is what truly tears Pip apart. The next quote is I live quite pleasantly there, at least. It appeared to me that I was losing a chance, at least, repeated Estella. As pleasantly as I could anywhere away from you. You silly boy, said Estella, quite composedly. How can you talk such nonsense? This shows that Stella is not impressed by anything. Pip uses every chance he has to try to impress her, but nothing works. She brushes what he says aside and makes them seem like nothing. It shows how uncaring Miss Havisham has taught her to be, and it also shows that she thinks she is smarter than Pip because she calls him his words nonsense. The next character is of Compeyson. There are many passages in this novel that are important to the character's development and description. Compeyson is the person who is the criminal partner of Magwitch, and he later becomes Magwitch's enemy and captures him at the end of the novel, despite the fact that he also died. Compeyson is also the man who stood up Miss Havisham on their wedding. So Compeyson is a character who is considered to be hard, selfish, and law-breaking to nearly every character in Charles Dickens' novel. you can see how he could be considered underhanded and greedy. In the book, page 37, there is a quote that is, tackle notice, take notice, take notice guard, he tried to murder me. This passage helps to describe Compeyson in a discreet way. Later in the story, you'll discover that this is Compeyson and Magwitch and their relationship earlier unknown. Magwitch worked for Compeyson. I found this statement to show how deceitful Compeyson is. He has no care for the past and immediately tried to get himself out of the trouble and to get Magwitch in more. There is a quote about Compeyson that is, but I heard my father mention that he was a showy man and the kind of man for the purpose, but that he was not to be, without ignorance or prejudice, mistaken for a gentleman. My father most strongly asseverates, because it is a principle of his, that no man who was not a true gentleman at heart ever was, since the world began, a true gentleman in manner. These lines are spoken by Herbert about Compeyson at page 191. This passage is a very significant description of Compeyson. Here he is shown as the gentleman who left Miss Havisham all those years ago, simply for money. It shows that no matter how hard he may have tried, he was never to be a real gentleman, because that is something that is done through the way you are raised, not fancy clothes and money. So it's all about the major and minor characters. Thank you so much.